Hi, my name is Jessica Beard, and I will be speaking to you today about side-perching behavior in dragonflies. Now, many species of dragonflies are territorial. Males will stake out a perch in a territory and they will defend that perch against other males. And they do this to get mates, good oviposition sites, look for food. You can often see them performing a behavior we call obelisking. And these two males in the pictures are doing just that. And obelisking is used for thermoregulation and also defensive displays. Territoriality has both costs and benefits for males and females. So costs include the energy expended in order to defend that territory from other males. It could also lead to physiological issues, injury, and increased predation. But there are also many benefits. Males can have increased number of mates and food. Females, it's been shown to have higher egg hatching success and offspring survival when they mate with males of good territory quality. Dragonfly sizes vary extremely widely among different species. So in this picture, I have one of our smallest dragonfly species, the eastern amberwing, Perithemis tenera. It is the one on the bottom here getting eaten by this medium-sized species on the top, that is the eastern pondhawk. And so dragonfly size can, of course, help with territory contests, especially if you can eat your competitors. Most species of dragonflies will use the tops of their perches in order to stake out their territory. Past research have been shown that larger species tend to prefer taller perches. However, we did not really find that particular pattern in our data. But having a taller perch gives you benefits of being better to visually access food and mates. It also gives stronger wind to provide lift needed for flight. But there are costs associated with that as well, and that you may increase your predation risk and also displacement off the perches, as we can see this male dragonfly getting displaced by another male here. Now, again, most species tend to prefer or use the tops of their perches, but in our research, we noticed that some species almost tended to prefer to use the sides of the perches, and that is what I'm going to present for you today, is that why some species tend to use the sides instead of the tops of the perches. We performed experiments using artificial perches that were either short or tall, and we placed them in two lines out in the water. So some were closer to shore or farther away from the shore. We recorded a variety of variables and behaviors in our experiments. This chart shows you all the species that were present at each of our study sites, and highlighted here, these are the species that actively participated in our perching experiments. And so to give you some perspective on these species, I've arranged them by size on the next slide. So here are our species arranged by size. We had 3 small species, Perithemis tenera, which is the eastern amberwing, Pachydiplex longipennis, and Cellithemis eponina. Again, these are our 3 small species. Our medium-sized species is the eastern pondhawk, Erythemis simplicicollis. And again, we had 3 large species, Brachymesia gravida, Libellula needhami, and Libellula incesta. So we put forth 3 different hypotheses to try to explain side-perching behavior in dragonflies. One being that maybe it's the larger species that are using the sides of the perches for some physiological aspect, such as thermoregulation. Another hypothesis is that maybe it was the smaller species side-perching because the larger species were excluding them from the tops of the perches. And then lastly, we hypothesized that side-perching behavior may be a way for males to reduce competition with other males. So the first set of results that I want to show you are the proportion of side perching events by each species at a couple of our study sites. So at Sleepy Hole, what we see is the first three species that are listed on this figure, Pachydiaplex longipidus, Brachymesia gravida, and Celythemus aponinea, almost never use the sides of the perches, while another species, Erythemus simplicicolis, almost always side perched, especially for the taller perch available. Libellula needami and Libellula incesta also use the sides of the perches. At Hawthorne Creek, we see a similar pattern, and that the first three species never really use the sides of the perches. Erythemus simplicicolis, though, almost always use the sides of the perch, except especially for the taller perch available. Libellula needami also frequently use the sides of the perch. And then at Lake Whitehurst, it was our smallest species, Parathemus tenera, which is frequently or almost always side perching on both of the perches available. So in order to evaluate the first hypothesis that larger species were side perching to better thermoregulate, this is not really supported by our data because the side perching events were not really exclusive to large species. It was really a range of species, but also one of our largest species, Brachymesia gravida, never side perched at any of our field sites. Our second hypothesis here is also not really supported because the side perchers weren't just small species. They were large, medium, and small species. Also, side perching behavior happened quite often when the top was completely unoccupied. So this brings us to our third hypothesis, and that maybe side perching behavior reduces competition with other males. And so here I'm showing you the number of intraspecific and interspecific contests. The species Pachydiaplex longipinus was again a species that never side perched, and it engaged in the most competition at our Sleepy Hole field site. Also, Erythemus simplicicolis, which was frequently side perching, had much fewer contests with other males. Again, we see a similar pattern at Hawthorne Creek in that our species that were perching on the tops of the perches had the most contests with other males. And Erythemus simplicicolis, which was often side perching, had much fewer contests. And so in conclusion, the position on the perch or the side perching behavior does seem to be related to competition among the different species. The dragonfly species that were side perching most often tended to be poorer competitors that often lost more contests than they won. Also, one of our small species, Pachydiaplex longipinus, very rarely perched on the sides, and it engaged in the most competition and won quite often as well. So with that, I would like to thank the Animal Behavior Society for having me give this talk, and I'd be happy to take any of your questions if you have them. Thank you.